So the question mark was, can we even do nats?
Yeah.
I squatted once a week, 1 rep, and then I filled my volume through split squats and belt squats. And I squatted 282.5 at nats.
Like, it just goes to show that, like, you don't have to lift that heavy, like, in prep.
I learned some shit.
Oh, yeah.
I learned some shit.
Welcome back, guys, to episode 12 of The Hunt. Today, I'm located here in Maryland's Western Sydney, Breakthrough Fitness, with none other than Matt Bartholomew.
The lads.
How are you, mate?
I'm good, mate. I'm well.
Good to see you. Came down the Breakthrough today, honestly, just to see some of my clients, and I thought there'd be no better way just to tee up a conversation with you, mate, because obviously we go back quite a while. I think I've known you for probably, nearly 7 years. I think I remember in high school, because you went to Kings, I went to Riverview, and I
saw a bit of each other.
Saw a bit of each other on the field, and then obviously I think we went either ways. I think you were at Macquarie for a bit, and then I was down in Melbourne, Cairns, and then we kind of reunited back in the water.
You've been everywhere.
Yeah. It goes for a while, but we've kind of gone full circle together, and we've ended up in this funny sport of powerlifting.
Yeah, man.
And I guess for the viewers that know you, they probably know you as Matty the athlete, and a lot of your content that you do put out is obviously surrounding like your athleticism and obviously your commitment to the sport at a high level.
Yep.
But I guess some people that don't know much about you is that obviously you're a coach and that's your full-time role, both online and face-to-face here at Breakthrough Fitness. So I guess overall, where did all that start for you, given the beginning of your career at Macquarie?
Yeah, so when I was at Macquarie Uni, I was studying. So I was doing a Bachelor in Human Movement, Human Science, and the trajectory was towards physiotherapy. And look, when it came down to balancing out the passions versus what was practical and what have you, it ended up being something that I was doing a lot of PTing at Mac Uni Gym.
Yep.
And frankly, I was doing reasonably well in that bachelor's, but there was a very small cohort that was going to make it to that doctor of physiotherapy. And to be frank, I wasn't committing to that to the level that I would need to go and do physio. But in a sense, I'm thankful that happened, because the reason that I wasn't committing that high or that hard to my studies was that I was PTing so many hours in the week, because it was something that I was very passionate about. So as it kind of, shook out, I ended up pursuing PT as a career. I actually spent a small amount of time looking at teaching as a career as well. But again, from a practicality standpoint, I remember being in that teaching degree and I was 1 year in at Sid Uni, and the business was doing well. And the business started doing well enough that I started to see this as a very viable option. Whereas honestly, it was a part-time job whilst I was studying for so long. And it was only at that point where I saw that the business was doing well enough that I could make this a career, where I was like, I think I'm going to roll this way. Because I think when I balance out, if you look at physio, obviously there's an interest there in the human body, in anatomy, in psychology, in helping people and taking care of their health. And then on the teaching side, you've got that passion for teaching people. We get to do all of that in coaching.
See you, mate.
We get to do all of that in coaching. And so I think that I fell into this career and I'm able to do all these things that I was kind of trying to vie for in my sort of, late teens, early 20s.
For sure.
And just eventually fell into that, and, the rest is history.
So you've pretty much barely been a student, mate. You kind of were living a full-time income when, like, stereotypically kids in first year, second year uni, they're kind of, asking Unky Link to fund their allowance each week for their rent and stuff. But it sounds like that you actually had a pretty, I guess, reliable run leading into your early academic career.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I worked very hard with inside and outside of PT. I was also working just labour. Out of school. Actually. I was just working labour and just getting money to pay for Cert 3-4 when that was a priority at the time. And then any future investments in education, I've sort of initially funded through not just working as a PT, but also doing whatever it kind of takes to make sure I could keep progressing.
Sure.
I think, look, honestly, if I had to review my time in coaching, I've had mentors. I've done a couple of courses and whatnot, but a lot of it has been experience and time-based. When I look back, I started PTing when I was 18, and we're almost 10 years on from that now, which is really cool to look back on. And just all the wealth of experience that I've developed through I worked in a Gen Pop gym for 3-4 years, Then I moved on to working with some athletes and then powerlifters. And the last 5 of the 10 years has been powerlifting. And I think that there's a lot of value there to be essentially start broad and get more specific
Get
over
your hands
time.
dirty first.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And you also learn to value working with people who want to train.
Yeah.
Because working with people who actually don't want to be there, you learn skills, you learn how to read people, you learn how to communicate with people, you learn how to make a program fun but also useful.
You learn how to motivate.
Yeah. And I think that's a big one too when it comes to even programming. We hear about programming strategies. What's the most optimal programming strategy? Well, more and more we're seeing people start to talk about the one that gets you in the gym and the one that gets you training hard, and that there are grades of what's good and what's helpful, but that's like the prime in my opinion, and I think we're falling there more and more.
The level of novelty, pretty much.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
I mean, look, you're going to have some people who, and I would consider myself one of these people, who I would just do SBD every day. Like, I love to powerlift, I love to lift with barbells, and I enjoy other training too.
Yep.
And then there's going to be some people who still love powerlifting as a sport, but don't truly love to train that way. And there's, a grade of endure the suck,
Yep.
that you've got to do some things X and Y.
Yeah.
But then there's going to be a huge element of things that is, okay, you love to do this, let's
Yep.
put that in there, you
Yep.
know? And it's funny, like, I can draw that comparison from just working with Gen Pop,
Yep.
you know?
Yep.
So it's all invaluable experiences along the way, for sure.
sure.
Yep.
The one thing that I think that I'd like to highlight is just the fact that obviously you get starting out as a PT in an industry at such a young age. There's no doubt going to be some viewers listening or watching this, and they'll probably be thinking around the same sort of area where they've just about to finish school, and being from King's and like a GPS school, no doubt PT wasn't at the top of the list for what the career advisor was saying to you.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah.
I guess my next question is how did you go, I guess, siphoning through, I guess, the pressure of like, you should be a pilot, you should be a doctor, all these amazing sort of careers. How did you find PT and how did you commit to that so hard?
Well, I have to thank my parents here because even though I was at a school where that was the pressure,
Yep.
I never truly felt that pressure.
Yeah.
And I think that's reflective of the conversations and mentorship, for lack of a better word, I've had from my parents in that process where there was never pressure on what I was going to choose. And so that allowed me to go with the flow and trust my gut and make decisions based on truly what I wanted to do.
Yep.
I knew there had to be a practicality to it.
Yep.
But I mean, when I was that age, I was still living with my parents, so I had that safety net.
Yep.
But as we talked about just before,
Yeah.
things went well enough that I shortly moved out and things were going well and I was able to follow that. And that wouldn't have happened if I didn't kind of have that freedom of choice. And sure, I might have landed in another career, but I've always been incredibly passionate. And even in school, there'd be kids in year 7, year 8 saying, oh no, I'm going to be a doctor, right?
Yeah.
Their parents had already decided for them.
Yeah.
And even from then, I already had a strong opinion that I needed to find something that I love.
Yep.
Because I see so many people in careers they loathe.
Yep.
And maybe they're earning 20, 30 more grand a year than they would doing something they enjoy. But you really can't purchase that feeling and that enjoyment. Coming home from a day of work here at Breakthrough or being online are often common, and it's very cliche that it really doesn't feel like work.
Nah.
It's almost funny that we get to do this thing and other people value it so much that they'll pay for it.
Yeah.
It's surreal. It's really cool.
Yeah.
And we get the pleasure of working with people every day and making a real difference to their life. And that for me is the
Second to
cake.
none.
Yeah, that's it, man.
Yeah.
So whatever I'm doing, I think that the more I talk about it and the more you kind of ask questions about it,
Yep.
that's what it comes down to, is actually just having a real effect on real people every day.
Yeah, for sure.
I think that's the coolest part of it.
Yeah, and I've met both your parents, and they're amazing people, and they've definitely done a great job shaping, the man that you are. And to some people out there may not have the parents that I guess support them in things that they want to do or the aspirations that they truly have. But I think it's people like yourself and me, going against the grain.
Pave the way a bit.
Yeah, pave the way for the future generations.
Because you're right. I mean, like we're two blokes who've made a career out of this thing that isn't the go-to at,
originally we tried to do the go-to.
Yep.
Like
Maybe a degree of conformity.
Yeah.
And then eventually broken through and continue to follow that gut.
Yep.
And yeah, look, I think I'm blessed in a sense that I didn't have a huge amount of pressure. You might have experienced different.
Yeah.
So
Yeah, a bit of a longer burn for me.
yeah,
7 years.
exactly. But I
Yeah.
think that a different version of the same story, in
Yeah.
a sense, because of the upbringing and because of
Exactly.
the schools we were at and that kind of thing. So, yeah, I mean, look, for anyone out there listening who might be in the same boat, I think that an opinion that I hold now is to treat those like late teen, early 20 years as experimental times.
Yeah.
And really allow yourself that time. I think
Take
we have
that gap
so
year.
much pressure on
Yeah.
ourselves to start that next thing once school's over.
Yeah.
And yeah, if I could do anything differently, I'd take a gap year next time. I'd take 2 years of just working, earning money, learning about the world. You know? So, 100%. I mean, it is what it is. But
that's good.
Yeah.
Okay, but the next thing I want to talk about, like, continuing on with the origins and stuff like that.
Yep.
The stardom of Matthew Bartholomew. I think I remember before we actually were speaking physically face to face, I remember seeing you cracking over 110,000 followers on Instagram and whatnot. Yep. And that was just unseen of to be in the same, I guess, conversation as you. How did that come about? And I guess, where did that early 2015, 2016 stardom come from?
Yeah, I mean, that's honestly I'd say a very different phase of my time and my life to now.
Yep.
Where that rose up, throughout school, throughout even the year or two after school. I was actually very anti-social media.
Yeah.
I didn't really have like an Instagram or anything. Didn't really spend much time on Facebook. Never used Tinder in my life. Never used Tinder in my life.
No, fuck it. Hear that, Steph? That's a good thing, you know?
Grindr though. So look, I was in this phase where I didn't really like social media. Honestly, and it might seem ironic to some who've seen my page over time, because I've been through phases where I've done modeling, I've done various things, I've put my body out there and whatnot. But not getting into social media was an anti-vanity thing. That was where I was at. And even when through the growth phase of my social media, I've tried to keep those values, even though there's certainly been phases where it's gotten to my head.
Yeah.
And I'm honestly in a phase now where, like, that follower count has dipped. I don't post as much of that kind of thing. I'm athlete Matt, and I feel more true to my core values now.
Yeah.
And I learned a lot through that phase, and it was exciting, and there were a lot of opportunities that came with it.
Yep.
A massive part of that growth was A, doing some modeling, B, working with Muscle Nation.
Yep.
So Muscle Nation, I worked with them for a number of years. I don't work formally with them anymore because, again, of that attitude change.
Yeah.
Lots of love and respect for the crew, and I'm actually keen to do some work with them into the future. But not formally working with the guys anymore. Yeah. But that was a massive part of my exposure. They were putting me out there on these big share pages and getting my name out there. So
formally working on Gun Game on college.
Yeah. For any of you guys who don't know, we would all catch up. Chris Anastasi, owner of Muscle Nation, or the part CEO, we'd jump on the pod and get after it.
Like it was that, when was that, like COVID?
Yeah, it would have been around the COVID period. I mean, that was a long period. But look, I think very thankful for all parts of the journey, but I think happy to be back in the phase now, almost that pre-social media phase where you'll probably notice, man, like I'm not posting a ton.
Nah.
I'm not putting as much out there as I used to. And look, little quiet one. I mean, it's going to be a podcast, but rebranding at the moment.
Yep.
So soon the coaching side of me will be a bit more loud.
Yeah.
And I'm still going to do what I do with the athlete side, but I'm going to create a stream that, okay, I've got things to say.
Yeah.
I've got stuff up here that is of value, and I do want to share that. Yeah. But I've always been someone who's happy to take my time as well.
Yeah.
I think action's important, but I also am just aware of like paying that due diligence and then beginning to speak.
Yeah.
That's how I've always behaved. So. Yeah, look, the social media journey's been an interesting one. Never really felt like a star, I must admit. It's just
you're a star.
It's
mate.
just Instagram.
Personally, I'd love to see shirtless Matt back in action, but
here we go.
but we'll leave that for the uncut scene. But the OnlyFans account. But but the thing is like, I think that whenever this goes for anyone, like you see blokes post all the time, whether it be weekly, like just coaching keys or information, whatever. Like, I don't know about you, mate, but I'm not really sitting reading it because it's all kind of diluted stuff that I've already seen before.
Quite, yeah.
But when someone like yourself, or like I could use myself as an example, like I used to be that guy, but I know now that like if I put out a piece of content that's really well written, I've taken about a month to kind of like analyze and digest, whether it be a case study or something anecdotally that I've found that's worked really well for my clients, it's a good golden nugget.
Absolutely.
And that's all it really is, because you can really put out a bunch of shit and just kind of like, you just get people scrolling past it.
That's right. And like, I call that like the social media hamster wheel, where everyone else is doing it.
Yeah.
We're told that the quantity of content is important. And that's all good and well, and you are going to get eyes on you.
Yeah.
But I think that something that a piece of advice I was given by Chris Anastasi from Muscle Nation around social media was you're always developing and affecting your reputation.
Yeah.
So what you just said, is music to my ears, because I know that if I put something out, you and probably many others are going to be really interested to read it and hear my thoughts.
Yep.
Again, probably because it's infrequent.
Yeah.
And it could be more frequent because there are people out there, I could list several, who post frequently and really high quality content. It's not as if you can't have both.
No, yeah.
But to sacrifice the quality for the quantity maybe is something to consider.
Yep.
And to just alleviate that pressure, how much is it helping you long term? Yep. And having that long term lens for any young coaches out there, letting the process take time is a really important thing.
Yep.
And if that means having another job for a period of time or whatever you need to do to really, really take care of that reputation and that brand growth, I think that's really valuable.
Yeah. Because at the end of the day, like, you could be posting X amount of times per week and you may attract a certain type of client who is always looking for, I guess, that kind of stimulative information.
Yep.
And the information's already out there. And to be honest, all this stuff that we do in our career is pretty much made up. Like programming and stuff, it's made from scratch. Like
it's a creative outlet. Like the fundamentals and the principles exist. There have been some new waves of knowledge and research that have appeared over the last handful of years.
Yeah.
But has it dramatically changed the way that these adaptations occur? Probably not.
Yep.
Has it widened the lens for how many different ways it can be done?
Yep.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And that's where it just comes down to the experiences of the coach, the analysis of the person, and then projecting those ideas in a new way or in an inventive way.
That's
And I think that's a really good piece of advice around content development, and definitely something that I would stand by. Yeah.
100%. That's good. All right. Well, next thing I want to jump into, Matty, is obviously, like, you've trained hard your whole life, but it's come at a cost.
Yep.
But I would say that, like, your journey as an athlete hasn't really been, I guess, the most common route for a lot of other people who do train hard as well, because for quite some time you were training through quote unquote bit of pain.
Yep.
A lot of pain.
A lot of pain. Yeah.
And I think a lot of the people don't know about it, and I know, like, this goes on a deeper level psychologically, because it takes a lot to be training up north of 20 hours a week to then have that thing taken away from you. So we'll get into psychology, we'll get into obviously the actual makeup of what occurred, but in short, mate, I guess what was the injury for the people so they can learn it in an easier manner?
Yeah, absolutely. So I sustained a stress fracture to the T7 left pedicle in my thoracic part of my spine. So, to use less jargon, around the part of my back where the lobar sits, just underneath it, kind of in line with your sternum area. And look, when it comes to this kind of injury, the people that I've worked with to get through it have noted, hey, this is not really a common occurrence. I've personally never heard of someone getting a thoracic stress fracture, let alone a pedicle. Actually, pedicle was kind of news to me. I didn't actually have the awareness of what that structure was before I was told you've got a fracture there.
Yeah.
First
time I heard it was when you said it to me.
Yeah, so for those of you, go and do some research on the pedicle. There's a left and a right pedicle that connect the main body of the spine to the spinous process.
Yep.
And so there's a lot of sort of lateral loading that'll happen on left and right. And it's also a neural highway through there. So it was in the one of the lockdowns where I started to get this pain. I call it pain now. In the time as athletes, and I'm sure you've experienced this, we call it anything but pain because we want to escape the possible reality that it might hold us back.
Yeah.
And so there was this process, and I work very closely with Nick at Balance Health and Performance and a lot of the other crew there. So I've always got people looking out for me and looking after me. And so when this discomfort that turned into pain arose, it's something that we looked at immediately, and we assessed and we got, okay, what is it? We think it's this, or we think it's this.
Yeah, because there was a number of things. Like you went down the rabbit hole, didn't you?
Because it's that kind of area, there's so much in there.
Yeah.
There are ribs, there's joints, there's muscles that are attaching in there.
Discs.
There's discs, exactly. There's the spine itself. There's so much that you can look at something and go, okay, sure, I can assess this and I can theorize it's this, but unless you go and get a scan, maybe you don't really know. Yeah. And the thing that I'm thankful for is that generally speaking, my crew are for figuring things out without a scan if we can.
Yep.
Because as you'll know, especially when it comes to spinal presentation on scans, there can be some presentations that aren't related to the pain that you're experiencing. So it can muddy the waters a little bit. And so that was the initial kind of approach. Anyways, over time, this got worse. And this was actually leading into the Hunter Performance Comp that I did.
Yeah. Very first showdown.
Yeah, but But in saying that, the lockdown was well before that. So
Yeah.
I've been dealing with this on and off for about a year at the point that I started prepping for the Hunter Comp. I had pulled 302 in the lockdown.
Yep.
I had squatted 280 on that same day
Yep.
with a lot of pain.
Yep.
And now I can look back on it and know that I had a fracture
Yep.
at the time,
Yep.
or I was at least on my way to a stress fracture.
Yep.
I then did the Hunter Comp, a total PB,
Yep.
hit 755,
Yep.
and that was astonishing when I now know the context. So I still didn't know that I had a fracture.
Yeah.
What we were doing was, outside of comp preps, we knew something had to change and we had to alleviate the pain, and so we'd change training, we'd make it less specific, and that would tend to help it a lot.
Daily front squat enjoyer.
Yeah, exactly. And that would help it a lot. And then we'd inevitably get into a prep again, and because now I know it was a fracture, it will only heal if spinal load's completely taken away for like 6 to 8 weeks.
Yeah, when you say spinal load, you mean axial.
Axial,
Yep.
but even things like deadlifts were taken away when we were doing the proper
Right.
healing phase, because it was just any kind of compression or force into flexion or extension was difficult to sustain.
Yep.
And was likely putting stress through the already existing fracture.
Yep.
So we ended up going and getting scans done. Look, this opens up a whole other can of worms, because the scans process was weird and super scary. So to kind of walk you through this, I went to a specialist, spinal specialist, surgeon. He goes, right, go and get an MRI. Great, because we wanted to check for discs first. Discs look great, fantastic. How happy are we? However,
Still fucking sore.
your spinal cord is anteriorly displaced in the spinal canal. We all freaked out.
Yeah.
We all freaked out, right?
Yeah.
Like
Yeah.
that we thought we'd been training with some kind of spinal cord degeneration of kinds. And it's like, all right, what do we do now? So, all right, you got to go get a flow study done, which to my best knowledge is like a really localized MRI on the spinal canal to check how the spinal fluid is flowing. Why they wanted to do that? Well, they go, if you have this anteriorly or pushed forward spinal cord, it's possible that you have what we call arachnoid cysts in the spinal canal.
Yeah.
Great. Awesome.
Yeah.
So the prospect was we're going to have to do some spinal cord operation to take these away. Went and got that test done, and it was clear, no cysts, and that's just how my spinal cord sits. So again, we have a red herring. We have a problem that isn't a problem, which is what I touched on before about scanning too early.
Yep.
So what's next? All right, well, we had various extension, flexion, x-rays done, nothing really showed up. And what ended up finding the fracture was a bone scan, which I'd never heard of before. You get a tracer injected into your arm. 2 hours later, after that tracer has absorbed into your bones. By the way, I couldn't see pregnant women or children for 2 days because I was radioactive. Mad. Heaps of fun. What happens then is they scan and a healing bone signals with the tracer absorbed. So they're able to say, oh, okay, that's where we needed to go and do a CT scan now.
Yep.
CT scanned it and found the fracture.
Yep.
So that's the story of
cool is that?
Of the fracture. It's super cool.
Like
yeah.
that bit of tracer specifically finds the localized area for where the healing process is starting.
Yep.
That's fucking
It's
sick.
just essentially flagging this bone is in distress.
Yeah.
Yep.
And I will also mention, like, when you went and got, I think it was the news about the anterior displaced cord. You're like, we're playing a bit of Apex.
That's when I
And this was,
chatted with you.
this was after, fuck it, mate. The new map is so shit. Like,
See, I love Apex still.
Bring back Kings Canyon. Like, that was goated day. Shout out Jason Stupas, the
Jason.
cuckery, Fuck me. But like
We
that,
had
anyway, well, like, I was not only stressed about this new stupid Apex Legends map, but I was also stressed about Matty because he was stressing about all this kind of noise.
Weird time,
yeah.
It was a weird time. So my general training experience, I can look back on it now with, I guess, fresh eyes and not one that was coping. Because look, when you develop something like a stress fracture, it happens over time. That's the nature of it. So you get kind of used to the graded increase of pain that you're experiencing.
Yeah.
So it might originally be like a genuine or objective, even though it's a subjective scale, 2 out of 10. And it might progress to a 9 out of 10.
Yep.
But you still perceive that 9 out of 10 as like a 5.
Yep.
So for positive or negative, I can work through that kind of thing. And it was to my detriment. I worked through a really bad injury for way longer than I probably should have.
Yep.
Even with all the best people around me, even with all the best advice and all this, because even if I had a training experience, and this is the kind of thing that would happen, I'd low bar squat, it would be painful to unrack, it would be painful to breathe. At the end of each rep, the pain would spike to about a 9 or 10, like severe pain. It would hurt to re-rack the barbell particularly, so to decompress after compressing that area. And then I'd finish a back squatting session and I wouldn't be able to get my sleeves off, or I wouldn't be able to get my shoes off for 20 minutes. You know, I'd need time, or I'd have to hold my breath.
Wouldn't be able to wipe your ass.
And brace, you know. Thankfully, I could still wipe my ass. But I had to brace to get that sleeve off. And it's funny because we talk about the psychology. I am healed now. I'm post-injury now. But still, when I got to take my sleeves off,
PTSD.
I hesitate. And this is a part of my experience now. So, anyways, this was getting close to Nats now.
Yeah.
So it was way finer and way closer than I let on.
Because like you're in, you're out. Like
I had to do 6 weeks off barbell, and we're at this point where I'm a handful of months out of Nats. Yeah. Right. So we did that.
Dive into that.
Yeah. So the question mark was, can we even do Nats?
Yeah.
And look, I have to thank my specialist. He was very, very positive throughout the whole process and very supportive of the athlete in me. He wasn't getting too kind of protective about it and saying there's no way you can do that. He was saying, mate, you do 6 weeks and we do a rescan and we check that it's been healed, which happened and we did. So I did a great job of that. Supplemented the shit out of calcium and whatever it is, Vit K or whatever. And just did everything I could to make sure that healed up. But I mean, it was healed, but it's not over at that point.
Nah.
You know, you had a stress fracture in a very, very localized area of the spine where a lot of other things are impacted, you know, various other joints, like I said, ribs, all these kind of things. So that happened, you beauty, great. Get stuck into a nationals prep. Well, okay, how much work can I handle? It was 1 set, 1 rep on squats per week.
Fuck, man.
And I squatted 282.5 at Nats. So that story is its own thing. And that I look back on that so proud. So proud of what I was able to achieve in that Nats prep.
Let's ditch the stuff about the mentorships and stuff. Let's just dive into that.
Yeah.
Because that's a whole nother can of worms.
That's it. So when it came down to nationals, you know, if you just even take away the injury for a second, 93 stacked weight class.
Stacked.
Most stacked it's been in a long time.
The stacked, arguably, of the 2022 Nationals campaign.
For sure. Yeah. And also the 93s, if you zoom out a little bit back to, you know, Will Phillips, Colin Webb era.
Yep.
You know, Scott Hill, all this kind of thing. That was probably the latest it's been that stacked.
Yeah.
So it's kind of almost had this recovery phase.
Back then it was like 730, 740.
That's right. With all the, 770 from Phillips.
Phillips, recently.
He actually still holds the best just half a kilo above Jonesy.
Yeah.
But yes, you're right. In that time, it was more around that low to mid sevens. So the weight class has moved. But point is, like, this was going to be probably the highest pressure comp I'd ever been a part of.
Which is a first.
I'd had a few years of competing amidst, you know, various federations where things were less competitive and whatnot, and then COVID, and then this huge comp, which I was super excited for. And then I had this happen, and you know what, man? I'm the kind of person that when this sort of thing happens, I knuckle down harder.
Yeah.
And I'm like, there's no fucking way I'm not going to nationals.
Yeah.
So if I had to again review that phase of this injury, it was probably like slightly on the reckless side, you know, because it's 6 weeks, you've done your healing, okay, prep immediately. Like, would you do that if you weren't talking to a competitor? You probably wouldn't.
So what's happening before this 6 week period? So are you belt squatting? Are you benching?
So pre the 6 week period, I was getting ready for states.
Yeah.
I could not low bar anymore. I had the one session that I had where I couldn't push through it was pre-states.
Yeah.
And I cried.
Yep.
And it was the hardest thing to stop and to not have a choice. I was actually.
When was the last time you missed a squat session and you stopped?
Well, before that, never.
Never.
This never happened. And I've experienced other stuff that could stop you, and that's not like a badge of honor that I wear, but I do think that it's important. It's an element of that's important to be a really great athlete,
100%.
and I think I'm on my way to being a really great athlete. I look at powerlifting as such a long-term sport, so I look at the next 5-10 years, I'm on my way to that.
Yeah.
And all this stuff, for good or bad, is necessary in its own way, right? So pre-states, I'd thrown the towel in on low bars. I was like, all right, I'm going to compete at states high bar, because high bar, it was a lot easier to constrain that part of my spine and rib cage.
Yep.
And there wasn't as much sort of extension force traveling through those mid T's.
Yeah.
Yeah, because it's all a lot more stacked.
Yeah.
So I was able to high bar with a lot less discomfort. And then what happened? I had a mild thoracic disc injury because of that sudden change, probably overflexing a little bit. Ended up getting these other injuries that started sort of circling around this main injury.
Yep.
Then we went, right, let's just do our process and get a scan. Once we had the scan, it was like, states isn't happening. So we applied for an exemption. Thankfully, that was approved. and we were given some time. And so yeah, that 6 weeks started. It was hammering belt squats, hammering the nuts out of belt squats.
So quick shout out to Breakthrough Fitness for investing in a really good belt squat.
Well, they've got a pitch shark now.
I just said.
And then prior to that, we had a cable.
And that would have been
belt squat.
That would have been hard.
Yeah, it was okay.
Because the strength curve is pretty tough.
Yeah, the strength curve was tough. Yeah. So look,
Fuck you, Rogue.
I psychologically just shifted gears.
Yeah.
I understood this happened. I had closure on the fact that it happened. I can't do anything about that. I need to heal. What can I do? And I continue to work hard. I continue to work hard. I continue to focus on what I could focus on, control the controllables, we say. And I had a great training block. Came to the back of that, and then, Nationals prep started. Now, that was its own funny reintroductory period. Essentially, what I had to do was start with like unracks and putting a bar back on there and recompressing it and getting some exposure and building that up. I wasn't squatting for quite a period of time. And then as Nationals continued to approach, it was like, okay, if we're going to go to Nationals, if we're going to justify actually going, we're going because we want to be competitive.
Yep.
So what are those numbers in theory? Reverse engineer.
Yep.
What's the minimum I have to do to get to those numbers? And we decided it's tight, but we can maybe get there. And we started that process. And that was just a very gradual, basic reintroduction process. And there were painful weeks where there was still triggering happening. And is that psychological or is that physical?
Yeah.
Really hard to know.
Fuck, it's hard.
And so I'm battling all this behind the scenes, talking about it with my sort of, with Steph, with my family, with my practitioners, whatnot, with Amelia, who we'll get onto. And this was, probably the hardest prep of my time in the sport, of the 16 preps or whatever that I've done.
Yep.
Because I was battling with what I wanted to do, what my body actually could do.
What you can do as well.
How strong I actually was versus what this one part of my body would tolerate, Yep. So when we kind of come forward to Nationals, I had squatted like
We'll start from week 1. So you're 6 weeks out?
6 weeks out. It wasn't even about blocks anymore. It was actually more like zoom out to like 16 weeks, which is about what I had.
Yes. Okay.
And it was like the first 4 to 6 weeks I wasn't squatting.
Yep.
I was unracking bars.
Yeah.
Walking them out and walking them back in.
Yep.
And
teaser.
and I was just doing that with 60.
Yep.
And then 67, and then another session might have been like 80 and then back to 67 and then 100 and it was just this really
when was your first rep?
I can't remember exactly, but it would have been about 9 or 10 weeks out.
Fuck me. And during this period, you're 4 times a week on the belt squat, flogging yourself.
Yeah, not that many times per week, but flogging myself when I'm on it. Yeah. And still benching and all these kinds of things, and doing again a slow intro back on the deadlift. Deadlift's always tolerated it a lot better. Mm-hmm. It was a low bar squat that was always one that really caused me dramas.
Yep.
So yeah, look, I mean, at a guess, I probably squatted 200 for the first time about 7 weeks out.
Yep.
And eventually squatted, more like 250 by the end of prep. And I was like, well, that'll have to do.
And you did plus 32.
Yep.
Holy fuck. Like, it just goes to show that, like, you don't have to lift that heavy, like, in prep.
I learned some shit.
Oh, yeah.
I learned some shit.
And you could probably tolerate more volume than you think.
Yeah, I learned some stuff, man. Like, that's the thing, is, like, you look at this kind of thing, and it's like, okay, doom and gloom, you fractured your back. Sweet, dude. But I learned some shit.
Fuck yeah.
So, like, the fact that I came through, you just said it, man. I squatted once a week.
Yep.
1 rep.
Yep.
And then I filled my volume through split squats and belt squats.
Yeah. What was your split and belt squat rep range and sets in RPE?
I was hitting hard sets of 10. So I was ramping up to a singular set of 10 at 9, just all out.
Yep.
And then I do 2 ramping sets up to that.
Yep.
So on another day of the week, I was doing dumbbells in hands, similar approach, about 10. So the volume was great.
Yep.
The legs were getting plenty of attention.
Yep.
And then when I came through to my low bar session, I essentially just treated it as a performance day. It wasn't a significant variable in my adaptation.
No.
There's obviously something happening there, but I couldn't. I couldn't put enough weight on the bar to do that. Yet I still achieved that. Yep. So it's definitely been eye-opening for me. And I think that even if we sort of fast forward to my most recent block, post-Nats, I needed a mental break.
Yeah.
So I did a lot of non-spec stuff
and
turned that as my bodybuilding phase, whatever. I needed a break.
Yeah, fuck yeah. Break off the belt squat.
That's it. And now, I sat on the hack squat a bit.
Okay.
Actually,
I remember that, yeah.
Yeah, I was slamming the hack.
Was it Atlantis?
No. It was a pre-core.
Yeah.
So, fast forwarding to now, what's really great, to kind of bring this full circle, is what's really great is I've fallen back in love with the idea of prepping. I'm sad to say that I didn't enjoy my nationals prep, you know? And it's funny, the emotional investment I have in a sport, even saying that, it's a little bit emotional, that I didn't enjoy nationals prep. I didn't enjoy this prep with the most stacked weight class in the 93s.
Yep.
I had to be there, but I didn't enjoy it. And I didn't enjoy the day either.
Yeah.
Because even though I did an amazing job with all of this context in mind, Hey boys. Hello.
We'll cut that out.
Yeah.
Keep going.
Easy. So I didn't enjoy my nationals prep. And when I say that, you know, it's upsetting, but the reality was I was being held back the whole time, whether physically, whether mentally. And look, if I looked at you doing the same thing, or a friend or a client, I say, wow, that was amazing.
Yeah.
How did you pull that off? Like, you did such a good job. What amazing mental fortitude.
Yeah.
But in the driver's seat of it,
fuck, it's hard.
it just sucked.
Yeah.
It just sucked, man. I just felt like I was like just held back.
Yeah. So
and coming into nationals with that weight class, totaling what I totaled, you know, I can look at it and say, okay, that's another one on the board. But now, fast forwarding, the point I was getting to was I've fallen back in love with prepping. So Steve Day reached out and invited me to the Perth Cup. And I hadn't decided on a comp yet. I was considering doing Hunter middle of year. And I was in the middle of a bodybuilding phase. And he goes, do you want to come do it? And I just went, yep. And I thought to myself, fuck, you're keen, you know? And that was a really cool moment. I was like, you're super keen to get back out there, you know?
Yeah.
So I've just finished one.
Did you mention who's going?
I know who's going.
No, you're good.
Oh, yeah. The whole 93 top 4 are there.
Good.
Yeah. So I'm aware of that. I won't be competing in 93s.
That's right, 105.
I'll be competing in the 105s.
That's right, yeah.
Now, I could do either. I'm in spitting distance of the 93s, as I always am. I'm just gonna not cut.
Yeah.
So I'm just gonna not cut. I might roll in at like 96, 97, 98 if I feel like it. And just what's important about this comp for me is no one who's attending this comp matters. All that matters is my trajectory for the next 5 years, 10 years. And the way that I set myself up for success is I break the pattern. Now, the pattern has been, unfortunately, injuries at competitions and pain at competitions.
Or in prep.
So even prior to this back injury, I have had 3-4 comps where I've come in with knee pain, or I've come in with this pain or that pain, right?
Yep.
And I'm sick of it.
Ankle spurs.
That's right. Ankles, ITBs, all these things. And you know, we're paying attention to that stuff. We've made a big change to how we run our program.
Yeah.
I'm actually self-coaching now.
Yeah.
So I'm actually self-coaching with Andrew Tang continuing to supervise that.
Yeah.
So we've just flipped that a little bit, purely because we had some nice, honest conversations.
Yeah.
We're super supportive of each other,
Yeah.
and we just transform that relationship into something that can be a little bit more intuitive.
Yeah.
I can try some things that I've learned over the last decade, and we can run it.
Yep.
So this comp is all about starting again.
Good. That's good.
It's all about starting again. It's about going in and having a smooth prep, having a fun prep, going in and having a fun day, and really finding my roots in powerlifting again.
Yeah.
Because I'll be honest, that fraction nearly broke me.
Yeah, fuck yeah.
When it comes to powerlifting.
Yeah.
I dealt with it for so long before we even found out what it was. I was already exhausted when we found out it was a fracture.
Yeah.
It's already done.
And inflammatory response-wise, your body's just stressed.
Yep.
Yeah.
And I was...
And you're still making gains.
Yeah, and I was, you know, definitely a less calm person than the today Matt in the midst of that for a year and a half, you know?
Yeah.
Like, thank you, Steph.
Yeah.
You know, for like dealing with some of my shit.
Yeah.
When I come home incapacitated from squatting and upset about it.
It's crazy that we can actually talk about this sort of stuff now on a like a physiological level, where like stress just affects you so heavily.
Absolutely.
Like in the moment, like in looking back, even now, like you probably, like, if you didn't have that amount of stress imposed, you probably would have pretty close to winning. You know what I mean? And the fact is that like I think you're a bee's dick on the podium. Like,
yeah, man. Like, honestly, when it came to the day itself, being in the other group sucked as well.
Yeah.
I personally think that there might have been a closer tussle for the
100%.
podium if I been there with the boys.
Yeah. Who was handling you then?
Tank.
Tank was
yeah.
there.
So, look, honestly, like, again, the mindset, it all compounded, and it shit happens, right?
Yeah.
So what compounded was I was already in that mindset of being held back and coming into the comp, you know? Then there was the element of, well, you've been put in this other group, and you can go two ways with that. Oh, I'm the underdog. But really, it was, I've been removed, you know? So it just compounded that my attitude was already in need of help.
it compounded also your enjoyment.
You know? Like, compounded my enjoyment, because also it's so fun to be going back and forth with your competitors, you know?
Yeah.
So, look, that's something that I feel like I was a little robbed of.
Yeah.
But, you know, that is what it is. I've come to terms with all of that. The performance that I put up was great. And that I look forward to coming back and
dominating,
coming back against some of the same boys and some others.
Yeah, hashtag.
You know, so but give me some time.
That's good.
And so yeah, look, this block I've just done, brilliant, so much fun. So I come off the back of it. I've squatted 255 for 3. I've deadlifted 260 for 3, and I've bench 175.
Yep.
And
are you hitting depth?
Yeah, it's the best I've felt in a long time. Best I've felt in a long time. I'm actually in different heels at the moment.
I saw you're not in the Aidens.
I'm in the Aidens now.
Me too, brother.
Yeah, I find I can hit better depth in the Aidens.
Yeah,
funnily enough.
Yeah. Is it because of the fact that it's got not as high as an arch?
Yeah. I don't fall forward as much.
Yeah. That's keys, by the way. Like Adidas powers are fucking brilliant if you have like really flat feet.
Yeah, and look, for a long time I used a really high heel, either a Romelios 2 or the Antas, because that left ankle, I got like bone spurs in that left ankle joint.
Yep.
So I have about 10, 15 degrees less range at that.
Do you squat staggered?
No. It moves staggered in terms of like it being a compensatory thing for a while, which isn't inherently a problem, but it kind of worked up the chain.
Yeah.
So no, it's pretty even, but that's because I've just worked far more on like control center of mass and like hip range.
Yeah.
So I just don't need as much at the ankle because I'm just not jamming shit.
Yeah.
But anyways, this block has been awesome. I feel like I'm really moving in the right direction now.
Yep.
Now what I'm doing is next week I'm going to run like a kind of a mock meet.
Yep.
Like easy singles, something like at 8, because I haven't run any singles this block. And that's the other thing too. I learned how to be minimalist and have effect. So whether it's one time a week or this block has been 1 by 3 on low bars, right, and 3 sets on a high bar, I'm going to come through and hit a single next weekend, and that'll be really, really interesting. You know, so I'm trying to learn about, you know, not like how low can you go, but kind of finding that out. Because everyone wants to know how hard you can go. But how low can you go, and then where can you exist in here and still get really fruitful gains?
Yeah, bro. I love the fact that my secondary squat day is simply 4x4 at 3 to 4.
Yep. Just super easy.
I'm loving it.
And for a period there, I feel like the community and the world of powerlifting goes through swings.
Yeah.
For a period there, people say, "Oh, well, that's not doing anything.
No,
you know, it's junk."
You got to be within the proximity of failure.
6, 7, 8, 9, 10, and it's like, cool.
Yeah.
But honestly, as soon as you put a barbell on your back, there is a stimulus.
Fuck yeah.
And whether that's going to be directly some neural strength adaptation or another of the many adaptations we're chasing in the gym, that's up to you. You know.
Yeah.
So I think keeping your eyes open there and not swinging too much with the industry is really important.
Yep, I agree. Yeah, and I think as you touched on, like reigniting that enjoyment and love for training is so important. Like, I also did not enjoy my nationals because I just felt like I had so much pressure. Like not pressure from the fact I'm going to hurt myself or anything like that, but just pressure because I was created, I guess, this image of myself to do so well, and was
that self-imposed pressure?
Yeah, self-imposed, completely self-imposed. Fucking publicly announcing it, telling my mates, telling my mum, telling John the dog.
And we do that to, I guess, exhibit confidence because sometimes we feel like that's the thing to do.
Yeah.
But what I found, and you might agree with this, is often the most quiet people are the most confident.
Yeah.
You know, the loudest people, you know, even at a competition, I've observed this. Someone comes out on the platform screaming and going nuts. Sometimes that's their thing.
Yeah.
But sometimes they're actually just scared. You know,
shitting themselves.
And that's a bit the same as what you just said about being a bit vocal about things. Actually, just put an unnecessary amount of pressure on you. You know,
and even to like go back to the social media thing, like it carries over there. Like I don't post very much. Like I think, mate, at the start of the year, because I was working less on the floor now at HPC, I opened up 10 new spots, and that was like my first posting about taking on anyone.
Yeah, I noticed that.
And I was just like, I got so many inquiries because I'm not just hammering it all the time.
It's like what you said before.
Yeah,
you know, that infrequency actually, it's almost like a scarcity thing.
It is. It's like a supply and demand.
Yet, people are talking about your coaching. Your clients are talking about your coaching.
Yeah.
And your reputation is building outside of the world of social media.
Yeah.
That's what we sometimes forget is that actually what matters way more is my client from this evening who I looked after had a bad day, and we had that psychology chat, and they performed really well. Goes and talks to the family who my name gets known there, and that's way more important than a follow.
100%.
You know, that's a real impact. So I'm happy to hear that you were really busy when you posted that.
Yeah,
that's a great thing, man. Because last time we chatted, you were kicking off.
Yeah,
like really, last time we properly chatted about your coaching. Was as things were birthing. You know,
yeah, for sure.
So that's fantastic to hear.
Yeah, and then also the fact of the matter within back in towards programming and stuff like that. I feel like when we post and talk and I guess publicize what we're trying to achieve or what we're after, sometimes it can get really, I guess, high pressure oriented feelings in the matter of the fact that you have to perform at this level because you have this expectation of yourself.
Yep.
And I felt like that was just completely like blasphemy for myself. I just felt like I wasn't being who I wanted to be.
Yep.
And now that I've passed that and I've learned that, like, look, if I just enjoy my training and if I have no pressure and I just have fun and like really just like enjoy the moment, like the sets that I'm doing, that's where I make most of my gains.
Absolutely, man. Yeah. There's like a let it happen mindset that has to exist.
Yeah.
That has to be paired with this like brutal, committed mindset too. That is intense.
Yeah.
But it's about driving your intensity to the right places.
100%.
So being able to drive that mindset and that intensity to when it matters, when we all know when that matters.
Yep.
And then being able to, like, I've been working on this a lot lately, being able to switch off and switch on.
Yeah.
You know, Scotty Wilson, one of my mates, Olympic weightlifter.
Scotty Wilson, yeah. Scottish guy, eh?
Yeah, we work on a lot of contrasting stuff with in comparison to powerlifting. So powerlifting is a very heightened state, kind of like mouth breathing, really, really high intensity sport. And being able to contrast that either through activity or the way that I breathe outside of my training has been this kind of new thing that I've been playing around with to come out of that always heightened state. Because again, I'm just more considerate of the wider scope, you know, outside of that training session. That training session requires a version of me.
Yeah.
But legit, I found myself at points on my way into the gym, like this, driving, and I'm like thinking about my top set.
Sympathetic as
like,
fuck. Yeah.
You know,
no hard style playing.
And now I'm putting on the chill music, breathing through the nose, drop the shoulders, put the window down, you know, and let that happen, because that actually gives me a bigger bandwidth to contrast in the session.
100%.
It gives me a bigger jump.
Mate, you know what I'm listening to when I'm training these days? Fucking Pocket Full of Sunshine.
Oh, Celine.
A bit of Unwritten by Natalie Bedingfield or whatever.
Put on a bit of Celine Dion.
Fucking hell, bro. It's just like...
You know Steve O'Hanson?
Yeah.
Loves a bit of Celine Dion.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Oh, my gosh.
Mostly to annoy me.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Fuck,
and he'd always use bumpers and calibrated plates together.
That also is annoying.
Still love him.
I still love him.
So, look, mate, that's a bit of like a wrap on the injury experience. I could talk about it for a lot longer because there's just so much that happened.
It for fucking like
It
2 years.
It just went for so long, and it impacted a lot of things. Where I'm at now is I'm in a really, really nice place where I feel like I'm really turning that leaf. I have to say, my body isn't the same.
No.
I have to be considerate of this injury that I had. It was a severe injury to that degree.
Yeah.
Whereas sometimes you go through an injury, oh, good, it's new once it's done. Well, it's good, but I have to be very considerate of a few factors.
Yeah.
And so I'm having fun with that because I am doing more of that self-coaching, self-programming. I'm really enjoying that because I love problem solving.
Yeah, same.
You know?
Yeah.
So I'm just in the midst of that right now. The next comp for me is going to be hopefully a really clean professional showcase.
Yep, I'll be there.
And then,
keen to see you do it.
Yeah, fantastic. And then it's on to the next.
Fuck yeah.
Yeah.
That's good. I think we'll do one more question just to round it out. But obviously, like, you had your team and you've spoken at length about how important it is to have your team in regards to practitioners and specialists and whatnot. But the one person that has really helped me, especially coming into nationals and after nationals and molding, I guess, the thing between my ears, is Amelia Potter. She obviously is a sports psychologist over in the UK, and I'm actually going to get her on for a chat soon, and I think they'll be incredibly valuable to a lot of listeners.
Yep.
But I think the one question I just want to ask, mate, what is and this is within confidence as well, if you want to say it or not, but what is the number one takeaway that she has taught you or given you that you've used that's been very effective in your training, specifically just for you?
That's a good question. I think that I'll answer it in a bit of an abstract way because I think saying, "Oh, this was the thing," it can be a bit tough.
Yeah. It's quite complicated.
I think the number one thing, this is going to be a weird answer, I feel, but the number one thing is her involvement. So what I mean by that is the act of just doing.
Yep.
So when we have other aspects of our training and performance, well, when it comes to your nutrition, well, how do you benefit the most from nutrition? Well, having some semblance of structure, having some semblance of action and doing a thing.
Yep.
That in of itself, like, we do various exercises that are for me. We push things this way or that way for me. And a lot of that is me getting my emotional state to the right place.
Yep.
I have a lot of emotional presence in my lifting, and sometimes to my detriment. So I'm working on that as a primary. So that's kind of the simple answer.
It's a long-term thing.
So I'm working on that. But the biggest impact is having her there,
Yeah.
is having someone who specializes in this, because, I can have chats around the psychological aspects and mental aspects of my performance with my coach, and that's great. But he hasn't done the study on it. Same with Nick out at Balance. He has his own version of what he can help me with, but his profession is the physical. So just simply working with Amelia has been a game changer because I have someone to go to about these things. And look, the last call we had, every call prior to the last one we had was like objective and let's do this, and objective and let's do this. The last one was just a chat.
Yep.
It was really nice. And actually we came to the end of it and she was like, oh, well, do you want to, is there anything we need to do for you here outside of this? I was like, no, it was just good.
Do you find that she just asks the right questions? Or...
Absolutely, yeah. She probed really well.
Yeah.
I think that the reality is that there are probably a lot of similarities between powerlifters, the type of people that fall into powerlifting.
At this level.
There's a lot of things
who gets to this point.
Yeah, there's a lot of things I think that will be quite similar in the nature and in the personality of those people.
Yeah.
And then it's up to someone like her to figure out what's that exact thing that's going to help this person. And yeah, I've thoroughly enjoyed working with her. I wouldn't still be working with her if I wasn't. I've been working with her for quite some time. A little longer than you, I think, maybe a couple of months.
Yeah.
And yeah, she's invaluable. And even if it isn't her, I think powerlifters out there who do want to take it seriously, and I have to address this, is powerlifting is a sport where treating it seriously is at times demonized.
Yeah.
It's sometimes pitched out as just a hobby and something that you shouldn't be so serious about. And I think that's perfectly fine. Other sports, take soccer for example. You can be a weekend warrior and play socially, or you can be gunning for the very best, and you'll be well within your rights to do that.
Yep.
Now, sure, the sports are at different levels from a financial standpoint, pro standpoint, but I still think that you should be allowed to treat the sport very seriously, and I'd encourage anyone out there who wants to treat it very seriously. Now, when you do that, powerlifting is one of the sports where psychology is not just like a given consideration. Whereas again, if I go back to something like soccer or any Olympic sport, having a psychologist, someone who does sports psychology, is just a part of the gig. You have your nutrition, you have your physical training, you have your track, and then you have your psychology. It's just a part of the gig.
Yeah.
It's like this new thing that's been spoken about in powerlifting, which is great because at the end of the day, if you treat yourself like an athlete, there are a number of psychological considerations to your health and to optimizing your performance, and those two things hopefully coexisting really nicely.
Yep.
So, yeah, think about it. If you are someone who treats this seriously, it might not be a forever thing, but just pay attention to your psychology. It has impacts, You massive. Can back this.
Yeah.
It has massive impacts to your training.
Yeah,
and some people more than others.
Yeah, I just think that if you just don't know what you're doing with your psychology, or you don't even know how to control it, or simply just you don't know what to do.
Well,
like if you're in the session and you're like, fuck, what do I even do with what I think about before the set? Like if you just don't know what you're doing, like there are things out there you can do.
Yeah, well, as the saying goes, you don't know what you don't know.
Yeah, I had to go through the whole ringer of like headphones in, fucking no one talk to me, headphones out for my top set like as if I'm on the platform, or no one talk, everyone talk. Like the way that I would chalk my hands, the way that I would, I guess, visualize, like that stuff never really worked for me.
Yeah.
And it's taken ages, even though I've done it like subconsciously in the past, back before I even became even as competitive as I am.
We do it naturally. We do things that feel good.
Yeah.
That help us with our performance.
Yeah.
So you ask someone to slap you on the back, or you have a whiff of ammonia or whatever, that helps me.
Yeah.
And that's a part of psychological preparation.
Yeah.
I think that with what you mentioned there about, are people speaking, are people not speaking, is this happening, is that happening? I think that the place that I've gone is, and stuff I've chatted through with Amelia, is around only really trying to influence the things that are in your control, because your environment is completely out of your control. If people are talking at a competition, if someone walks in front of you, if there's a fumble from a spotter or a fumble from a ref, these are all things completely out of your control.
Yep.
So having a calmness about that and knowing that and accepting that, and then having this, inward control of getting yourself to the right level of arousal or whatever it might be, is a major part of our focus. And I think a really important thing for athletes out there to understand is that it comes down to you at the end of the day.
Yeah.
The other thing too, I have to say, is you can't fake confidence. You really can't.
Yeah.
Confidence comes from, being the person you say you'll be, actually putting those actions forward, and then having a successful trend, and then going, I am who I say I am.
Yeah.
That's
having some integrity.
That's essentially where confidence comes from. And then in the context of powerlifting, it's momentum. It's blocks after blocks after blocks of executing, adhering, ticking boxes and doing the things that you want to do to get the outcomes you want to get. It
Yep.
takes time. You know, you're not going to just book a session with a psychologist. Oh, I'm super confident now. Like,
Yeah, yeah.
you know, it doesn't really fall that way.
Yeah, but even then, like as you said, Amelia's very good at probing, very good at figuring out what type of personality and lifter that you are.
Yep.
Like, I to be honest, I didn't really know what I was doing when I went with Amelia. I kind of just felt like I was missing something because
Yep.
I've had that psychological inconsistency in my own training, and
Yep.
now it's clear, and now she has like kind of figured out the type of personality that I have and the type of lifter that I am. She just gives me not only exercises to do, which do help a little bit, but it's more so like, okay, this is your type of personality. You need to start thinking more about this rather than this.
Directives.
Yeah. And just knowing what to do with my brain just helps me
Absolutely.
so much.
It gives you a bit of a roadmap.
Yeah, for sure.
And that's the best way I could describe it is like, if you think about what you just said, you're like, I didn't even know what to ask for. Like, I didn't know what I needed. I just needed something. And she's like, here you go.
Yeah.
Here's the roadmap. You're going from here, you're going to go there.
Yeah.
And it's like,
or even like she used to go to
Yeah.
call with her. She's like, so what's been going on? And it's literally like, well, it is like talking to a psychologist, but it's just like dumping like blur.
That's the thing, it's therapy too. So this is the other aspect to it.
Fucking
Even
wow.
just take yourself out of being an athlete for a second and just consider talking to someone about your problems and how that can help you just in general and how that then flows into your training.
So similar to you with the stress of the injury and whatnot. Like I've got, like thankfully I don't have an injury to really stress much about, but I've got the stress of a business and I've got the stress of a missus and I've got the stress of fucking,
I
paying.
don't say that.
Wait, it's a fucking hard job. But the thing is like, there's a bunch of other things that like I can just say and just, that I can't say to anyone else. And that confidentiality is just
that's
like,
actually another one.
holy
And
fuck, I can get out of that of my head.
And it's not even like you're saying heavy shit necessarily, like it can be, but it's also just like the menial shit that just exists in your brain taking up space.
Yeah.
So, whilst I was going through that injury that I was describing before, a lot of the calls, the first, 15 minutes of the half hour, she didn't say a word.
Yeah.
Because I was just like, hey,
Blah, 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 blah.
yeah, can I tell you some things? And I'll just speak. And then I'm like, no, I'm going to keep speaking until I feel better. And then it's like, okay.
It's weird how you like, I get out. But like, I remember when I first started with it, it was like her talking the most, and then gradually over the relationship,
you build that confidence.
It starts to turn cycles.
Yeah, and I think that's it. I think that she touched on this when we first started and it's no different to us working with lifters. The lifters, or in our case, I guess like you call us patients of hers or clients of hers.
Yeah.
The ones that do the best are the ones that take control.
Yeah.
Are the ones that have their hands
Actually
on,
apply.
and they want to be involved.
Yeah.
And they want to steer the ship to a degree with your help.
Yep.
So no, I've thoroughly enjoyed working with Amelia,
same.
and I think I'm on the tip of the iceberg with her. I think that I have felt outcomes with Amelia, but I feel like there is still work for me to do to find that real spot where I feel like I'm absolutely in flow.
Because really, like, even though we've been doing this for years, we're just getting started, really.
Absolutely, mate. Particularly in this sport. I mean, the same can be said for any sport, but particularly this sport it's a massive amount of consideration that has to go to enjoyment and longevity and taking care of yourself.
Definitely. No, that's good. All right, well, we'll get in a fast five to wrap things up in about 5 minutes, mate.
Let's do it.
So, if you were to train for a different sport, what would it be?
Gymnastics.
Really?
Yep.
Actually, you got quite the rings type of build.
I always wanted to do gymnastics when I was younger and never did.
But what event? The
Rings
I was
would
going
be
to say,
dope.
you look like a rings guy. You got the arms for it.
Yeah.
What is your guilty post-gym feed?
Guilty post-gym feed. Oh, Liam Zachariah will know about this. Big bucket of popcorn chicken from KFC.
The maxi size?
Yeah, dude.
Fuck
There
it
was a time there where like once a week, Liam and I would hit up like a local KFC and just get after it. Yeah.
The one at Artarmon?
Yeah.
Fuck, man.
Yeah, dude.
I after every single comp that was ran at Paragon, I'd duck by KFC on the way home. It's on the Pacific Highway. No, that's good.
Love KFC, dude.
Here we go. I know this one fondly. What is your gamer tag?
Oh, squish_batpig.
Ask about it. How is Batpig, the dog? Is it
Both of them, they're
both
good.
of them?
Yeah. So yeah, it started with Nala. So the idea behind that username is we've got Staffies, so Nala and Leo.
Yeah.
But Nala's the OG, and if you kind of like hang a Staffy upside down, like off the end of a bed or something, his ears flop. It's like a pig.
Are you holding it?
No, yeah, like upside down.
Like how Homer was holding it on
Yeah. Like kind of like if you like put your head back like this,
Okay.
like ears flop and she looks like a pig.
It's just
No, it
walking
looks like a
along the
bat.
roof.
So it looks like a bat. Sorry. And then
It's shaped like a pig.
and then you did a bit of pig. So mate, I don't know that name.
Well, and Squish. Is that like a household name for you?
Stephanitis calls it a squish. Like,
Fuck it hell.
So yeah, that's a game of tag.
What's the people when they say like, what's your, is it phrase? Like, you're he, her, she, him. Do you know what I'm talking about?
Yeah, I know what you're talking about. Pronouns?
Pronouns. Is that your pronoun, Squish?
Squish? Hell, I would have to be. Yeah.
I'll have to put that in the Instagram bio.
I'm not going to dig that hole.
Okay.
I'm just going to...
Leave that one there.
Yes. Love to all.
Oh my gosh. All right. What are some nicknames you have for your clients and co-workers?
Nicknames. I actually am not a massive nickname person. I actually just use their names. Yeah.
Bit normal.
Bit normal, man. Yeah.
MB? Get thrown around?
Yeah. People use MB.
Actually,
on
no,
me.
you've got it. Bart, you love
Yeah.
Barts.
Yeah, Bart's is
Come
good.
on, Barts. And the third squat and you fucking...
Come on.
Yeah. The old man out the back.
Yeah. Trevor.
Trevor.
So no, I don't use like any nicknames on my clients. I just call them by their names. Yeah.
That's good.
Yeah.
Very professional. All right. And obviously you just started, well not just started, but you've been here at Breakthrough for a while now.
For a number of months now, yep.
What are some unwritten rules here, mate, with where you work?
Unwritten rules as a working here?
Yeah. Can't make George a shit coffee?
I don't make George coffee.
He makes you coffee.
I just bring the clients in.
Oh.
You know? I just get the business going.
So he loves you.
We get along. I've really enjoyed my time here. I think that the average attitude at Breakthrough really matches mine in terms of how seriously I take the sport.
If you think about like your, I guess, career and like how your training sessions have molded on a serious level, this is as serious as it gets.
Absolutely. There's a lot of intensity here and I really enjoy that. And also the people are very nice. And that's a nice balance because you can get intensity and you can get some personalities.
A bit of banter.
As nice.
Yep.
But yeah, I think that also something that I have to touch on here is that since I've been here either training or working, not a month has gone by without an upgrade of equipment. So there's constantly the money of the members who are paying good money to be here is being reinvested into what they want to do.
Yep.
And I love that. And it's also based on what they want.
Fuck yeah.
You know, so I think that's a really nice way for a gym to function, really looking after the people that are here. I've got nothing but good things to say about Breakthrough, and it'll be great for us to get after a session after this.
100%, man. Yeah, I've come up here. Whenever I come to Sydney, I always come to Breakthrough, and it's definitely a fantastic gym. And I love how, I wouldn't say similar, but just like how, I guess, how hard we're pushing the industry for powerlifting.
Well, I would say that, give us a moment.
Got a Honda Grom going past
See
you
you later,
guys.
brah. I would say that Hunter and Breakthrough currently, there are obviously a lot of gyms that deserve respect for carrying powerlifting and the meets and whatnot over the years. But right now, the quality and the effort going into the meets at Hunter and here at Breakthrough, I find it hard to see a comparison.
Yeah. And we hope to pave the way for further gyms because fuck it.
Yeah.
There's heaps of gyms going out at Campbelltown at the moment, like Wellness Department, All In Barbell. I know Omni just got APU approved.
Yep.
So like there's a lot of people like that are coming along for the ride with us. But the main thing at the end of the day, like I just wanted to create a gym that ran good comps. I knew that the standard wasn't there yet, knowing what is happening overseas.
I think as well for a long time that the narrative has been that it can't be done for X, Y, or Z reason. And what's really nice is you guys are breaking the mold on that.
100%.
Really? Okay, we're doing it. How are we doing it? Come and chat to us about it. We'll tell you. You know. So I love that, and that's what we need. Is definitely that push to keep the sport moving. But for lack of that being the prime, it's like the experience of the lifter on the day. That's actually what's being taken care of, and that's what we're about.
Yeah,
you know,
people are paying money to come to your gym to experience your platform
for sure.
And that's why our comps sell out like that because of the fact of the matter is that like we put on a good experience.
It's exciting. It's an exciting day. It's a well-run day.
Yeah. And if there are any meet directors out there that want to run more meets at the comps, just reach out and
absolutely. I can collaboration like most things is where the magic's going to happen.
Fuck yeah.
So
wink, wink, nudge, nudge, George.
Yo.
Anyway, all right, we'll leave things there. Maddie and I are going to go. What do you got?
I got some deload work, so I'm chilling. I got high bars, boring stuff in and out because I'm going to do that little test on the weekend.
Ah, that's right. So taper.
Yeah, a little taper.
Very
I'm calling it a deload because I'm pulling back more work than I would if it was comp.
Yeah.
Because I want to be ready for next block.
Yeah, because your new game tag's going to be Minimalist Matthew now.
Yeah. I actually might make an account.
Oh, really? Fucking hell. All right, well, thanks for coming on the show, man. Appreciate your time as always. And if people want to find your handle, if they don't know already where they find you, and for coaching and stuff like that as well.
On Insta, _Matt Bartholomew. I'm going to have a brand new business launching soon, which will have its own version of things. But
Any hints?
Of now, no hints. Keep an eye. There will be plenty coming. I've been working pretty hard.
Fuck yeah.
It'll be cool. I won't say any more. I want to say more, but I won't say any more for now. This is a little Little drop there.
That's good.
So
That's
yeah,
good.
come catch me on Matt Bartholomew. I'm always happy to have a chat, even if it's not for coaching directly,
Yep.
and you just want to have a chat or a hand with anything.
Yep.
More than happy. And if you come through the breakthrough, come say hi.
Fuck yeah, very good. All right, thanks guys. Tune in next week, episode 13. Yet to know what we're going to do for it, but we'll see you guys then.
Thanks for having me.
Peace.